What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
It is time to give y'all the first look on the UFC 319 main event. Khamzat Chimaev finally stepping in there for gold against Dricus Du Plessis. We're going to break this fight down, talk about what each man needs to do in order to get their hand raised, and discuss what a really interesting stylistic matchup this is. So, Nick, without further ado, we love the technical breakdowns, and that's kind of what we've gotten known for on this channel.
Yes.
We talk news sometimes, but people really want to see what our breakdown is from a technical perspective. And this fight is as good as any to give a technical breakdown, because to me, this is by far the hardest fight for Khamzat Chimaev. Dricus Du Plessis presents a puzzle that is going to be very difficult for Khamzat to solve, because he has the strength, he has the grappling, he has the unpredictability. He's shown over the last couple of fights that he has the gas tank that maybe Khamzat doesn't necessarily have. This is going to be one for the ages. What are your technical thoughts on this fight?
So I want to get deep into the technical side of things, but I have to just preface with this. When Khamzat Chimaev came into the UFC and he in his first 4 fights only absorbed 1 strike total, immediately he was put on the map. Everybody goes, okay, this is our next guy.
Yeah.
He's going to be a champion, likely going to get there undefeated, all that stuff. And it ended up coming pretty true. Now, he did face some more adversity as his career went on, but that's how it goes. You get further up the ranks, the fights get harder. He is in the right spot. He's now found himself in a title fight. But he's found himself in a title fight with a guy who, as far as my perspective goes, is the complete opposite of Khamzat Chimaev, right? So I watched Khamzat Chimaev come in. He looked really good in his debut. 8-9 days later, he does another fight. He's looking really good. He's just running through people, not getting touched. I'm like, okay, we got a star on our hands, potential champion. Dricus Du Plessis comes in the UFC. He's got a pretty good record to start, but he comes in, and all of his fights are kind of competitive, kind of ugly. They're a little bit back and forth, and I had a lot of questions about his technical ability. So much so that every time that we would predict a Dricus fight, I would predict against him. I would hear about it in the comments leading up to the fight, saying, oh man, you're missing something. And then, of course, when the fight would end and Dricus got his hand raised, I would get lambasted for picking against him. Yep. So they made it to the title and made it to a world champion fight through completely different paths in my eyes. I knew Khamzat was going to get there. I was surprised DDP got there. Now, oddly, DDP's the champion. He's been there longer. He's been in bigger fights than Khamzat has to date. But as far as their UFC career goes, they've been in kind of similar length, similar amount of fights. And this fight to me is so interesting because I've said ever since their last couple, I'm not picking against Khamzat Chimaev because I think he can truly become an undefeated world champion. And after I picked against DDP time and time again, I said, I will never pick against DDP.
And here we are.
So now I truly am glad
one of those is going to have to not be true.
Exactly. And we're doing our first look at this, so I have a few weeks until we give our official prediction, thank God. But I do want to talk about the technical side of this thing because there are moments in this fight where both men can shine. Early part of the fight, round 1 and round 2, I think Khamzat Chimaev is the more dangerous fighter and has more ways to get the fight finished. But if he doesn't come out with this urgency and have dominance over Dricus in the first couple rounds to do enough damage and zap the gas tank enough, I believe rounds 3, 4, and 5 become very difficult for Khamzat. And if there is one point of criticism we can make at Khamzat Chimaev so far is that he gives every round that he gets into, he gives it his absolute all. And sometimes that means there's not much gas left for the later rounds. And, live by the sword, die by the sword. That's kind of like the Mike Tyson thing. You either go out looking for the finish or you're going to lose the decision. We haven't seen Khamzat lose a decision yet, but he certainly does go out looking for the finish every time. And when you're now talking about a title fight, 5 rounds, and a guy who hasn't lost in the UFC presents all the issues that you haven't really faced in the UFC, from the size, the durability, the power, and the grappling skills. Like, even though Dricus might not have the pedigree that Khamzat's known for on the ground, Dricus is still a submission ace, and he's still very hard to control on the ground and then, of course, find submissions on. I really think that if these two guys go out there and fight the way we've seen them fight on their way up to this title fight, we are going to have the most insane middleweight title fight of all time. The biggest title fight in middleweight since Izzy versus Pereira. But I also think this fight is, for me, the most exciting fight that the UFC can possibly make. It's the one I've been most excited for, and truly the one where I don't know who's going to win. I have a feeling if Khamzat wins, he runs away with it, and he runs away with it early. But I also think that if DDP weathers that early storm, come round 3, 4, and 5, if we get there, he starts to run away with it, and we see things like the gas tank start to affect Khamzat's ability to have output and to stay in Dricus's face with that same volume that he loves to throw. This fight to me is insane, and I want to get your opinion on it because I don't know where I'm going to go. I have now backed myself into a corner. I said I'm never picking against Dricus, and then since Khamzat's been in the UFC, I said I won't pick against this guy. So I'm between a rock and a hard place. I'm not going to go draw, but maybe your opinions can help me form my prediction.
Yeah, well, like you, I've picked against Dricus Du Plessis before in the past, and I've heard it every single time, and I've been wrong every single time, so I heard it for good reason.
Yep.
I've never picked against Khamzat. Khamzat, to me, when I saw him fight those first couple of times during the pandemic on Fight Island, I said, this guy's the future. This is the next big thing at 170 or 185, whichever weight class he decides to really take hold in and try to go towards the belt in that weight class. Now, man, I'm looking at this fight and I'm just thinking there's so many ways DDP can have a tactical advantage
For
here.
sure.
But Khamzat is always dangerous, especially early.
Right.
He hits very hard. His grappling pressure from the beginning is insane. He fights every round like this is the last round of his life.
Right.
He doesn't leave anything in the gas tank, which for him has turned out very much in his favor. I mean, the only fight that he needed to pull deep in was the Gilbert Burns fight.
Yeah.
Every other fight, he's just kind of getting in there and running through people. DDP, to me, is one of the most unorthodox fighters, certainly one of the most unorthodox champions we've ever seen in the UFC.
For sure.
But how do you determine if a technique is right, if it works?
Yeah.
Everything DDP does works.
Right.
His submissions are very good. He's extremely strong. He's good in the clinch. He finds very unorthodox angles to land big shots. He has power to couple behind those big shots. And when you look at it, okay, yeah, Khamzat Chimaev is a better wrestler than Dricus Du Plessis. I would say Dricus is equally as good or better with submissions than Khamzat.
Yeah.
He's also really, really good at scrambling. So, okay, let's play this out. Khamzat takes him down in the first round. Who's to say Dricus can't reverse that? Right. Can't look for a submission of his own, end up on top and do some devastating ground and pound. I mean, Khamzat did have trouble with Gilbert Burns, and Gilbert Burns is noticeably smaller and not as strong as Dricus Du Plessis.
That's right.
So those kind of things make me say, okay, Dricus has got some things that are going to be really problematic for Khamzat. We also haven't seen Khamzat in a little while. We know he trains like an animal. We saw what he did to Robert Whittaker, which is a common opponent. Him and Dricus both kind of dealt with Robert Whittaker, which I think, to me, that was the fight. Everybody was like, Khamzat doesn't deserve a title fight at 85. He hasn't done enough.
Right.
When you beat Robert Whittaker, you deserve to fight for the title. I mean, history would say,
says, yeah.
Exactly. If you beat Robert Whittaker, you fight for a belt and you probably become a champion.
Right.
But Khamzat, to me, is going to have to really be smart early on.
Yeah.
Because he can't just rush in like he did against Kevin Holland or any of the other fights where he just didn't respect the opponent at all, came right across the cage and took him down, because Dricus Du Plessis will oblige to that.
Yeah.
And he'll throw some bombs at you too.
For sure.
So you have to be careful. Like, how do you handle that?
Right.
I'm really interested to see what Khamzat does in the first 2 minutes of the fight.
Yeah, me
I
too.
think that'll be a real insight as to his game plan. What he's actually going to try to do. Does he think that he needs to conserve energy because Dricus is not going to be able to be somebody who's taken out of there in the first 10 minutes?
Right.
How does that look? Do we see a more patient Khamzat, something we've never seen before in the UFC? I really don't know either. I mean, I think this fight is as right down the middle as it possibly could be, which is why it's my favorite fight of the 2025 calendar year so far. It's the one I'm looking the most forward to because it's the one, to me, quite honestly, it's going to be the hardest for me to predict.
100%. And I get predictions wrong all the time. But for me, I even if I do get it wrong, in hindsight, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. This one, in hindsight, I might be completely off. Like, I don't know who's going to win this fight. And let's just kind of talk about the scenario of how this fight could potentially go. We know Khamzat's a fast starter. He wins the first round against everybody. But do we want to see Khamzat come out so gung-ho in the first round? Because, again, he puts it all out there and he runs out of gas. Dricus, when he's fresh, he's going to be a big, strong, just dominant force inside the cage.
Yeah.
So are you going to want to expend all that energy trying to get him down? Think about what Khamzat did with Kevin Holland. That, even though it worked out for him, he did get the submission. That was a whole lot of scrambling, a whole lot of chasing down a submission before he got there. If you do that with Dricus Du Plessis and you spend 2 minutes doing Granby rolls and rolling all over the cage, covering every square inch, and you don't get the submission, that can be a little bit exhausting. It can sometimes be more exhausting for the offensive wrestler than it is for the guy defending and intelligently and trying to get back to his feet. So I'm with you where I think Khamzat might have to play a patient game early on. He really does need to find these takedowns in the early rounds, but he can't do what he has done in the past where he just he'll throw a 1-2 or he'll throw a head kick and then he shoots in. And that's where the grappling starts. I think he needs to trick DDP a little bit, make him think that, okay, we're going to stand and strike for the early parts, and then I'm gonna take you down later in the fight. Once you've got DDP coming in, his footwork is a little bit wonky, and even though he's good at stopping takedowns, we can see guys change levels, blast in, and get him to the ground. Now, once you get DDP down there, good luck trying to keep him there, but we can see that happen. So I really want to see how Khamzat comes in and how he approaches when he wants to take the fight to the ground. Because if he goes out and sells out for the takedown, I believe he'll get it, but I also don't think he will just submit Dricus early in the fight. And if he does that, he might not have any more gas. We remember against Kamaru Usman, his volume went down by about 50% every time a new round started, just because you don't have that kind of gas tank to keep putting that sort of volume on somebody. And if you can't get somebody like Kamaru Usman out of there with some of your big punches, I don't know if you're going to be able to do it against a durable DDP. So for me, this fight is so interesting in the fact that I don't know which Khamzat's going to come out. I think he's obviously doing the right thing. He's been hanging a lot with Topuria, so I'm sure his boxing's getting pretty clean. He's been working a lot with Arman Sarukian, so I'm sure he's getting some good grappling, scrambles, and whatnot, even though that's a totally different sized animal. But he's also with Sam Calvida out in the training lab in California, which, if you know anything about the sport, he has been breeding the best, most cardiovascular,
TJ Dillashaw, Cub Swanson, Juan Archuleta,
Aaron Pico.
Yes, Sam is a guy that not a lot of people know about because he's not a fight coach, but he's like a VO2 max strength and conditioning specialist. He's truly like a mad scientist with the diet, with the strength and conditioning, and say what you will about TJ and some of the supplements he took. You don't get that type of cardio just from supplementation, legal or illegal alone. Like Sam is a good addition to this camp for Khamzat because he's going to need that dig deep cardio.
Yes, and obviously Khamzat knows that because he sought out the attention and the expertise of Sam Calvida. And if you know anything about the training lab's garage, the famous garage where they do all those workouts, one thing about it, if you go spend your camp there, you will have better cardio for your next fight. And I think Khamzat Chimaev realized, okay, DDP's got a tank. He's up there in South Africa, and he's sort of in like a mountainous area. I believe the elevation
like 5,000-6,000 feet, something like that.
5,000-6,000 elevation, sort of like Denver. So he's going to have a good cardio a gas tank. So Khamzat Chimaev realizes that maybe that's a weaker point in my game. Let me go work with the world expert, the mad scientist, the guy who has gotten people's cardio into really insane shape. And if he's recognizing these things and addressing them leading up to the fight, I have a feeling he knows where his weaknesses lie, where Khamzat's strengths lie. And if you formulate the right game plan and you execute properly, we might just see Khamzat Chimaev become the undisputed world champion. But again, this is first look. This is not official prediction. So DDP can definitely still raise some concern for my pick.
Yeah, no doubt. One quick thing I think DDP really needs to focus on. He's got really good uppercuts. He's got really good knees. He's also got a pretty heavy leg kick.
Yeah.
What are things that stop? Because Khamzat shoots. He changes levels and he shoots, and he does it relentlessly. When you're throwing hooks, when you're throwing straights, you can miss the person if they change levels. The shots that work really well when somebody's level changing are the ones that come up the middle. Uppercuts, knees, things like that. And if he can land some of those, maybe he can slow down those takedown offensives of Khamzat.
Right.
And also couple that with some, when they're in a wider range, throw those leg kicks, start to hit that calf, start to hit that quad, and that'll make the takedowns slightly more labored for Khamzat. That's something I think that DDP will be working on. I'm expecting to see some bombs up the middle from him as far as the shots go. But man, who knows? This is just the first look video. We're going to break down what Khamzat needs to do to win next and 3 keys to victory for DDP as well. And then obviously we'll make our final predictions. And God only knows who we're picking at this point.
We got DDP versus Khamzat Chimaev. This is the fight everybody has been wanting to see all year long. We knew it was coming, and I can't wait because we're only less than a month away. But I have a feeling whoever does win that fight, does get that belt, winds up becoming a very meaningful person in the pound-for-pound discussion very quickly.
Definitely.